Okay, we talked about annuity yesterday. The difference between annuity and perpetuity is annuity comes to an end. Fixed. Fixed number of periods. In other words, an annuity loan will come to an end. It will die. It will mature. Like any loan, it has to come to an end. 99.99% of the loans in the world are annuity. Whoever is going to lend you the money wants everything back by some time. Either tomorrow or the after tomorrow, next week, or next 10 years or next 30 years. No bank is going to give you a loan that goes on forever. 30 years is long enough. Mortgage loans are 30-year loans. Can be 30-year loan, can be 20-year loan. But in the UK, mortgage loan can be 30 to 35 years. In the US, they can be 40 years, 45 years. That's a long time. That's a lifetime. But in the end, somewhere in 30, 40, 45 years, whatever, it has to come to an end. It's a fixed number of period. It comes to an end. If you loan somebody money, you want them to give it back to you with a reasonable amount of time. If they never give it back to you and you have a dispute with them, that's a different story. That's why you never should give money to your friends or family. They never give it back. So it's a fixed period, number of period. Perpetuity is a cash flow, continuous forever. It goes on forever. There's only one example of perpetuity as a loan. As a loan. That's council bonds. These are bonds. Does anybody know about council bonds? Council bonds were issued by the British government in 1720 something. When the Napoleonic War was going on, when Napoleon, the Emperor of France, was going around Europe, conquering and everything inside, in order to raise funds to be able to pay for a war against him, British government sold council bonds to rich aristocrat British families. So they can have money on the spot to fight the war against Napoleon, and they promised to pay back certain amount per year forever. And those bonds still exist in the hands of rich British families, and British government still pays. Margaret Thatcher tried to buy the bonds back completely. It's not a big number, it's a small number. But she was unsuccessful. These are the only real living example of a loan that is going back forever. Most lenders will never go for that. Imagine Barclays Bank. You get a loan from Barclays Bank where you have to pay back forever. 40 years is long enough. Forever is a long time. It goes on. And people drop and they pass the bonds to their families. People who bought it in 1720 something, they're not alive anymore. Maybe. They're very old now. So it goes on forever. Present value perpetuity is the constant cash flow divided by interest. It's simple. But Taylor's chain mathematical mechanism, you come up with that, and the final output is that. Now, annuity, growing perpetuity. Annuity in which growing cash flow continues forever. In other words, this is a constant baby. This guy is constant, is fixed. £100 per month, forever. Or 500 pounds per year, forever. That's constant. But if the cash flow grows, which doesn't exist, as far as I'm concerned, I have not found an example of that, then the present value of the perpetuity is that. G is the growth rate. G is the growth rate of the cash flow. Now, R has to be higher than G, right? By this equation, if you look at this simple formation, R has to be higher than G. Why is that?
Cannot be negative.
Otherwise, the present will be negative. If G is higher than R, then an absolute value, then this whole thing will be negative. Present value of negative means what? Nobody is giving you money, you are giving out money. Cash flow is coming out of you, not into you. Whenever the cash flow is positive, it means somebody is giving you money. Whenever the cash flow is negative, that means you are giving money. So present value has to be positive. Otherwise, you're not going to buy anything. Yesterday, we did some examples, annuity and stuff like that. What if the present value was negative? That means you're coughing up a lot more than you should. So present value should not be negative. Present value of anything that's negative is meaningless then. It's something to avoid. The present value of your life is negative. That's when you jump off a building. Pointless. There was a very famous question in Harvard Business School or MIT? No, Chicago, University of Chicago Economics Department. There's a very famous question in the economics PhD program years ago when I was doing my PhD. What kind of a person, this is the economics question, financial economics exam. What kind of a person commits suicide? And in the parentheses, they said, do not give us any psychological or physiological answer. They want an answer based on economics and finance. What kind of a person will commit suicide? I just gave the answer. What kind of thing? At what time in your life would you take a gun and shoot yourself? What time in your life would you go to the tall building and jump off? Or whatever method you want to dispose yourself of. Who does that? People kill themselves all the time, all over the world. It's not a fantasy. It's not a fiction. It happens. But I know people who kill themselves, not because of me, I hope, but they have. Who does that? From a financial point of view, if you have to answer from a financial point of view, who doesn't work? What do you mean, who does what? You're not listening, you're texting again on your phone? Yes. Who does that? Who would do that? Think in your head from financial point of view. I think there's a seat here. Yes, ma'am.
Someone who has such big amount of loan need to pay.
Some people may, but that's not what I'm looking for. Yes, sir.
You mean like people who commit suicide when they lose money, or like companies like Enron?
Anybody who commits suicide because of love, lost their job, mom and dad don't like them, they're desperate, desolated, they're getting tortured, things like that. Long time in jail, a lot of prisoners commit suicide. They're looking at 40, 50 years in big prison somewhere in the US or somewhere. Who commits suicide? Everybody has a value of their life in their mind. You have a value, you value your life in your mind and your heart. You have a present value of your life because there's a future value attached to it. You're doing a master's, you'll get your degree next September, I hope, and then you will go out and get a job. Here, China, Japan, Greece, whatever. You have a life. You're going to have families. You expect all those things to happen. Because the future value is so high in your mind about yourself, not about me about this guy or me about this guy, but this guy about himself. When the future value is so high, the present value is going to be high. Look at the present value formula. PW is equal to FW divided by 1 plus R raised to power T. If FW is very high, your present value is going to be very high. But imagine somebody who doesn't see anything in the future, for whatever reason. Looking at a 50-year prison stretch in a Thai prison or Turkish prison or American prison. Somebody who has lost a love and doesn't think is worth living. Doesn't think the future value is there. Somebody who's lost job. If you feel your present value of your life is 0, because future value is 0, time to turn the lights off. For finance point of view, that's a very good answer. Because we all have value of our life, future value, and you're young people about to come out in real life, hopefully with good jobs in 12 months' time, families, house, make money, travel, all that is coming your way. That creates the future value. And if future value is high, expectation is high, future value is high, then present value is going to be high. Somebody with a high present value is not going to do anything like that. But if you feel the future doesn't exist for whatever reason, because you lost a loved one, somebody broke off with you, you lost a job, can't find a job, you're depressed, you're looking at a long stretch of behind bars, or you're a prisoner of war somewhere and getting tortured to death, when you don't see it, same thing. Similarly, in a war situation, when you are fighting in a war and a soldier, and you're shooting at somebody across the road, and they're shooting back at you, your present value is high because you want to live. But your value of the other person is zero because you want to shoot him. He's trying to shoot you, you're trying to shoot him. Or think of an artillery battalion firing cannons to the other side, and they're firing cannons back. You've seen movies like that. This battalion has their present value is high. They want to destroy the other side because their value of the other side's present value is zero. They don't worth living. So it's our perception. That's just a side thing. Okay. So let's talk about bonds again. Very quickly. We did this. Bonds are debt securities. A bond is a promise by the borrower, firm or the government, to pay the lender, bondholder, certain amount of money per period for a certain period length of time. Except for council bonds, we just talked about that, all bonds come to an end. Short-term bonds come to an end within the year, and long-term bonds come to an end more than a year. Terms of maturity is different. They are not the owners of the firm, they are debt holders. Remember that. We talked about that the first week. Stockholders are the owners of the firm. Bondholders are not the owners of the firm. Since they are not the owners, they do not control the firm. The board of directors are elected by the stockholders. And the board of directors run the company for the stockholders, not for the bondholders. The board of directors are directly connected to the stockholders, and they are the one who manage the managers and the CEOs who run the company. The bondholders are in the game. They are the shadows lurking around, who are looking at what's going on with the company, but they got nothing to say in it. They may be friends with some big bond stockholders and may have discussions, but they do not control the company. Since they are debt holders, bondholders get paid first before anybody. That's by law. Since they are debt holders, they get paid first before anybody. Any payment made to the bondholders is tax deductible by the firm. So any interest payments made to the bondholders by the company is tax deductible. So inland revenue and the bondholders get paid first. Stockholders get paid last. After the bondholders, who gets paid? Shareholders are last. They come just before common shareholders, but still they're not in that high in line. The bills, electric company, phone companies, or the suppliers. If you're manufacturing something, they have to get paid. Otherwise they'll take you to court and you'll be bankrupt. If you can't pay your bills, you're in trouble. Not able to pay your utility bills is as bad as being not able to pay your loan.
Employees.
Pardon?
The employees.
Employees is part of the bills they have to pay.
So you pay first for the bondholders and the employees.
Yes, you pay the bondholders first, The employees, the bills, the electric bill, the phone bill, the supplier, the guy who supplied you with the cement, the guy who supplied you with the construction material, the metals, whatever you're manufacturing, whatever you're doing. They get paid, somewhere you pay the inland revenue, because all these things can be taken out from the inland, and then whatever is left after the cost is what you have to pay the inland revenue, and then come the shareholders. All the cost a company incurs, the employee wages, the payment to the suppliers, utility bills, bondholders, these are all tax deductible to some extent. And in case of liquidation, we talked about this, the bondholders are first in line to get paid from the bankrupt firm. Whatever is left, the bondholders get paid first. So they are the debt holders, they are the ones owning the loan, they want their money back. They just loaned you the money, they never gave it to you away. The owners lose everything. Life of a bond is limited. We have done this before. Bond is a loan and has to come to an end. The interest payment on a bond is usually fixed, not always, is usually fixed. The simple bond is the interest rate is fixed on it. Whatever the bond is, that's the interest. You don't change it. But sometimes you get some non-conventional bond, the interest rate is fixed. But sometimes you get bonds, they call them special bonds, the interest rate is not fixed, it moves up and down. Mortgage loans, the interest rate may be fixed for a couple of years. When you first get a mortgage loan, at least in the UK and US and all that, they may fix the interest rate for the first 2 years or 5 years. But after that, the interest rate will move with the inflation rate. So in first-time buyers, you may get a fixed mortgage loan for 5 years of fixed interest, and then it moves up and down. These are the standard features of a bond. Okay, features. Coupon payment, stated interest payment on the bond. This is the amount. This is the amount. The coupon payment is usually fixed or constant. This is what you get as an interest payment in pounds. £100 per 3 months, every 3 months, or £500 every 6 months. This is the fixed interest payment that is stated on the bond. It is stated on the bond. You know, when you buy the bond, when you make a deal with the bond brokers, and you buy the bond for IBM or British Airlines or British government, whatever, this stays on the piece of paper. You get a piece of certificate, which is the bond, conventional bond, long-term bond. It will say that the coupon payment will be £500 every 6 months. And will go automatically from the firm to your bank account. There's no more checks, it's electronic transfer now. Face value. Face value is the amount paid during the last period of the bond, along with the last coupon payment. When the bond comes to an end, the last payment made 30 years in the future, or 10 years in the future, or say 5 years in the future, pays back the last coupon payment plus something known as face value. And the face value can be a large number. It can be a few £1,000, £10,000, £20,000, depending upon the size of the bond. So the last coupon payment comes the last period, and the last period also involves a payment known as face value. So this is today, 1 period, 2, 3, to period end, the last period. So there's coupon payment here, and coupon payment here, and the face value also. You buy the bond today, and the first period has coupon payment C. It's the same amount because they are equal to each other, and the last period also has the face value. And this is when the bond matures. A bond, excuse me, a bond does not have to sell for the face value. That's a very important statement. Face value is not the price of the bond. Does not have to be the price of the bond. That's not the amount you may be loaning to the company. Face value does not have to be the price of the bond. Coupon rate. Coupon rate is an interest rate on the bond. It is equal to the coupon payment divided by the face value. So the interest rate R is coupon rate divided by the face value, CF. You know the face value, you know the coupon payment, so you know the interest rate on the bond. The coupon payment is stated on the bond, the face value is stated on the bond, and the coupon rate is stated on the bond. Everything is on the bond, on printed. You know how much money you will get per period, for how long, and what face value you will get in the end. The length of the life of a bond, the number of years until the face value is paid. All that is known fact. There is nothing unknown about the bond. When you buy, you know these things. The company knows these things, and you know these things. Both parties know in the contract what is the midlife of the bond, the maturity of the bond, what is N, what is the coupon payment, what is the face value, and what is the coupon rate. Everything is known. So you can't wake up 6 months later and say, oh my God, I didn't know this was going on. It's there. It's always been there. It's there, it's always been there. How do you make money on bonds?
Coupon rate.
How does
The situation of the issuer.
situation of the issuer?
Yeah, for example, if it's a corporate bond and the company is now valued as a better creditor, the price of the bond will appreciate, so you'll make some capital gains.
One way, I guess. You know, the problem with the bonds is, conventional bonds is, the
Fixed
interest,
income.
the coupon rate is fixed. Right? The coupon rate is fixed. So if I buy a 5% coupon bond rate for 30 years, I'm fixed by that rate at 5% for next 30 years. And suppose it N is 30 years and I get paid every 6 months. Face value is £20,000. That's fixed, £20,000. N is fixed at 30 years. Payment every 6 months. And the rate, coupon rate is 5%. The rate is fixed. But the problem with bond is the market rate is not fixed. Interest rate in the market is jumping up and down. But my interest rate is fixed on my bond. My interest rate is fixed on my bond. If you open the back of Financial Times or Wall Street Journal, you'll see a list of interest rates. Not just one, list of interest rates. The list of interest rates are there, and most of them are not fixed. They go up and down. The money market rate that banks use to borrow from each other, the federal rate, Federal Reserve rate in the U.S., which banks borrow money from Federal Reserve, which is Central Bank of the U.S. Those are important rates. The T-bill rate, the mortgage rate, the Halifax rate. These are all different interest rates, and they're going up and down, up, down, up, down. While this guy is stuck. If I have a 5% coupon bond rate and the market rate in the outside is 8%, I'm going, what the hell is this now?
You buy it at a discount.
You sell it at a discount. Don't buy, my friend.
If you want to buy this bond, you buy it at a discount.
So if I already own it,
You sell it at a discount.
don't. When I ask a question, answer, please. So I'm going, what the heck is this? If I sell, it's sold at a discount. I'll do an example of that. Now, if the market rate is 3% and I'm sitting on a 5% bond, everybody wants to talk to me because I have a premium bond that I can sell. The value of the bond does not depend upon these guys. The value of the bond depends upon the market interest rate. The value of the bond, how much you buy for and how much you sell for, depends upon the market interest rate. Not on the coupon rate, not on the face value. The face value, the coupon rate, the coupon payment give the shape of the bond. but the value, the price, selling price, buying price, depends upon the interest rate in the market, because that is not fixed. Now, wait. What's the matter with you people? Turn your phones off. There are many interest rates in the world. Which one do you use to find the value of a bond? There's an interest rate known as yield to maturity. It's supposed to be the most accurate interest rate. It's a market interest rate. It's never fixed. And back of Financial Times and Wall Street Journal, you see it. Bond valuation, long-term bond valuation, usually takes place based on yield to maturity. So, if you have a 30-year-old bond, there will be yield to maturity for 30-year-old bonds. If you have a 10-year-old bond, there will be yield to maturity for a 10-year-old bond. If you have a 5-year-old bond, so N is different for different bonds. Some is 10 years, 30 years, some are 10 years, some are 5 years. So there's different yield to maturity for each length of maturity. 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. And you use that interest rate to find the current present value of the bond. The current present value of the bond. Now, let's talk about a little bit about maturity. Now, I said some time back, if a bond is less than 1 year old, it is usually a short-term bond. In other words, if the bond matures in less than 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, they are usually known as short-term bonds. Bonds that mature within 1 to 5 years is usually known as medium-term bonds. And bonds that are more than 5 years are long-term bonds. Long-term bonds and sometimes medium-term bonds are issued by anybody, by firms, by governments, and anybody. But very rarely short-term bonds are issued by private companies. Short-term bonds are exclusively issued by governments. British government, Canadian government, US government, Japanese government, whatever. This is a fast way of raising money. And they are not issued regularly. Governments also hold back from issuing 3 months or 6 months maturity bonds. In other words, in 6 months, everything has to be paid off. And that's not easy to do. And how do these short-term bonds issued by the government are known as treasury bills or treasury bonds. In the UK, they're called treasury bonds. In the US, they're known as treasury bills. They can be US treasury bills for 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, or UK treasury bonds for 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. And there's no interest payment here. How do short-term bonds work? They are bought as a discount. So the face value is £10,000. So 3 months treasury bond pays £10,000 face value. That means in 3 months, if you buy today, what's the date today? Whatever, September 7th. If you buy the bond today, in 3 months' time, the British government will give you £10,000. That means you have to buy today for how much? 11,000?
Less than
Way less than 10,000. As much as possible. If you buy for 9,000, then in 3 months you make £1,000. If you buy for 8,000, you make £2,000 in 3 months. If you buy for 7,000, you make. So these are sold in an auction to the highest bidder. Sold on auction to the highest bidder. And that's how they sell them. In the newspapers, you see an auction for US Treasury bonds or UK Treasury bonds will take place in so and so date. You don't have to go there. It's not like buying a painting. You have to go somewhere and somebody's throwing the hammer and it's just open auctions goes on. So name of the game, if I buy it for £6,000, I get 4,000. Same bond, this guy bought for £7,000, he gets 3,000 profit in 3 months' time. That's how treasury bonds and treasury bills work. There's no interest payment. There's only a face value payment. Not Facebook, face value payment. There's a face value payment. So you buy at a discount and buy and get the money back, plus some interest. So people who want to make quick money, think of major financial corporation. They buy these things all the time. They don't buy one or two, they buy in bulk. They buy 10 million pounds worth of UK Treasury bonds, and in 3 months they get 15 million pounds back or 30 million pounds. Banks do it, financial insurance companies do it, pension companies do it all the time. And of course, individual citizens do it. Older generation likes to play with this a lot more. Okay, this is the bond value. That part is the face value, or the present value of the face value, right? And that's the annuity of the cash flows. And R is not the coupon rate. R is the market rate. R is not the coupon rate, but R is the market rate. The yield to maturity. Coupon rate is just C divided by F. That's the yield to maturity. If the coupon rate and the market rate is the same, then what happens?
It sells at face value.
It sells at face value or buy at face value. Then the face value and the price of the bond is the same. But when R is not equal, when the yield to maturity is not equal to the coupon rate, then we got a problem. Your bond is either losing value as the market rate goes above the coupon rate, or your bond is gaining value as the market rate goes below the coupon rate. The coupon rate is fixed, it's a straight line. Coupon rate is fixed, it's a straight line for 30 years. So basically, the picture you're looking at, time, can you see? Do I care? This is the interest rate, percentage. This is the coupon rate at C. And suppose it started with the market rate, right, together. Then the market rate is going, and every time the market rate goes above, bond value takes a dive. Every time the market rate goes below, the bond value goes up. Now, old people or young people who buy a bond purely for face value and coupon payments and want to hold on to the value or hold on to the bond for the rest of their life, for their children or whatever. A lot of people buy a bond, for 20-year-old bond, when the kids are born. When the kids are born, they buy bonds for that they can pay for the tuition education when they go to university at 18. A lot of people do that. In US it's very common, and I think in UK also it's quite common. So they don't care what is happening to this thing. They just keep it that way. It's like buying a house. Majority of us buy a house and live in the house without worrying about the price of the house. They don't care what's going up and what's going down, you know. If your neighbor is selling the house, you may ask around, like, well, how much you're selling for and all that, to see what's going on, you know. But if you're living in the house and raising your kids there, a lot of people don't care about the value of the house as you live there. When you're about to sell, when you retire and want to move to a smaller place and or something like that, then you may worry about it. Similarly, a lot of investors, long-term investors, may not worry about the movement of the market interest rate. They just want to keep the bonds so they can get the face value and pay for the daughter's wedding or the children's education or something. But then the bond investors, the guys, the second investors who buy and sell to make money on the spot, the brokerage companies, the bond dealers, the investors like you and us who play in the market to make money on the spot, for them, this is very important, this red line. They buy the bond when the coupon rate is equal to the market rate, and most bonds, when they first go onto the market, when they first are sold in the primary market, the company tries to keep the coupon rate as close to the market rate. When the company first sells the bond in the primary market, which is the market for the new issue, they try their best to keep the coupon rate and the market rate the same. And once it's sold, then the bond bounces everywhere in the secondary market. As the interest rate moves up and down, the bond loses value, gains value, and the bond holders, the bond brokers, the guys who are playing the market on the spot, then buy or sell depending on the situation. What affects the value of a bond? What affects the value of a bond? If I ask you a question, what affects the prevailing of the bond? First one is the market interest rate, right? That changes the value, no matter what the bond is. Could be issued by IBM or British government or US government. If the interest rate is moving up and down, interest rate does. Interest rate, prices, these things don't stay still. Stock price, exchange rates, interest rate, these guys don't stay still. They bounce everywhere. Stock price changes every minute. Minute by minute, you can get a movement of the stock price. Interest rate doesn't bounce as much, but still bounces. These guys don't stay still. So that will change based on this formula. That will change. And some unique characteristics to a bond. 4 factors are common to most bonds that affects the value of the bond. 4 factors. Default risk. Default risk is the potential risk, important risk, the probability that the borrower cannot give the money back. The probability that the borrower cannot give the money back. Whether it's an individual person like you, it's a country, or it's a firm. If they borrowed money from you, there is some probability they can't pay it back. You cannot pay back your loan, you're bankrupt. So the lender will take over whatever asset you have. This is the reason the countries get away with it. Countries borrow money from UN or World Bank and blah, 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 and then they can't pay. What do? Do you invade the country? It's difficult to take over the asset of a country. Firms is easy. Some judge says, you are bankrupt. You, guys, banks, go take their planes and buildings or whatever. You don't pay, person can't pay his mortgage loan, you are homeless. So default risk is investors must consider the credibility of the bond issue. When you ask for a loan, why do you think the bank looks so deeply? They check you out, you check your credit, your career, your background, they give a physical examination completely. They want to check they want that you have a job, you have enough salary, blah, blah, blah. They want to make sure that you can pay back. I mean, things can change in 2-3 years' time, 5 years' time. That is very possible. Life can change. Bank can go bankrupt. Bank can disappear. Northern Rock disappeared. Lehman Brothers disappeared. Anything is possible. But on the spot, when they're giving you a 30-year loan, they want to make sure that your credit is worth. Similarly, when UN and World Bank and IMF, they give loan to a country to build a dam or build a highways and things like that, they want to make sure that this country can turn around and return the money. At least the interest payments. They go to the country's credibility has to be checked. Who's in power? What's the democracy like? Are they going to last? Blah, blah, blah. Is US about to bomb them? Or is Russia about to bomb them? These things have to be looked into consideration. Countries are much more difficult cases. Same thing companies. Bonds are rated by the level of potential default risk of the bondholders. So companies issue bonds, countries issue bonds, and Moody's and Standard & Poor's give a rating on the bonds. Standard S&P, Standard & Poor's, the American organization, Moody's, American organization, they look at each company's bonds and each country's bonds and give a rating. AAA is the highest rating. AAA means they are safe. They will cough up. US and UK get AAA ratings. It doesn't matter who is in power. The treasury of these countries will pay up for the bond. Because this country is run by a bureaucratic system. The financial system is very well organized. Double C or double D, which sounds nice, but actually is a bad rating. You get that, nobody wants your bond. Nobody loves you, including your mom. AAA is a very good rating. They rate the bonds of different organizations. These ratings are based on financial assessment of the issuing corporation and country. Well, countries are different because they don't borrow much from the universities, they do. But they borrow a lot from UN and IMF and all that. But corporations and individuals borrow from a lot of banks and institutions. Corporations issue a lot of bonds. And the ratings does help a lot in selling these.
But they also cause lots of problems.
Who does?
The rating.
Everything causes problems, man. If everything was equal, higher degree of default risk will have to offer higher return. Why? If the default risk is high, they have to offer a higher coupon rate.
So the people to buy these bonds.
Nobody will buy you. If you're offering the same rate as a very safe company, well, they should come to you. They'll go to safe company. Company X has a rating of 3A. Company Y has a rating of 1B. Two different ratings. If they're both offering 10%, why should anybody go to company B? Everybody will invest in company A. Because you have a high default risk, Moody's or Standard & Poor's have said that, or your company has not been doing well, you've not been making money, you're not stable for the last 5-6 years, you could go bankrupt. Because you go bankrupt, bondholders are also in trouble. Stockholders lose everything, but bondholders are also in trouble. In order to entice people to come and invest in your bond, to buy your bond, to buy your stuff, you have to say, okay, market interest rate is 10%. These guys, company A with triple A ratings giving 10%, will give 12% or 13% or 14%. Are you risk averse? Are you want to take a chance with us, earn 5% more than the market, or 20% more than the market, or 10% more than the market? Lower the rating, higher the default risk, higher the yield to maturity they have to offer. They have to offer a higher coupon rate. Because in a bond, coupon rate is the return. This is more relevant for long term. Short-term treasury bills issued by US and UK government are default risk-free. Nothing is default risk-free, but the chances of UK government or US government failing in 3 months is a bit low. Hey, you're late. Yes. Are risk-free. That's why in finance, when they talk about a risk-free rate, and you'll see that next week, the week after, when they say a risk-free rate, does it exist in the world? The risk-free rate is a very important concept in the theory of finance. In theories of finance and empirical investigation of finance, some of you may be doing dissertations next summer, hopefully all of you, and some of you may be doing something with risk-free rate. What is a risk-free rate in the Western world? This is the closest they come to. Short-term rate on a short-term government bills or bonds issued by the UK government or US government or the Canadian government or Japanese government. One of the stabilized countries with a stable, well-manufactured financial system. Their governments do not collapse. The chance of US government collapsing in 3 months is very low, almost nothing. The chances of British government collapsing in 3 months is very low. The chance of Syrian government or Iraqi government, Afghan government collapsing in 3 months is very high. So their 3 months treasury bond is not risk-free. So that is considered to be a risk-free rate. So when I talk about risk-free rate in the next couple of weeks, I will mean something like that. Okay. No, not yet. Okay. Liquidity. Liquidity. What is liquidity? Do you know what liquid is? What are you doing? Handsome guy. You're sitting over there today. Okay. Liquidity. Liquidity, of course, means something liquid, like water or something. But in finance, it means how quickly can an asset be converted to cash? How quickly can you convert an asset into cash? The faster you can do that, the faster is higher the liquidity. The faster you can sell an asset, the higher is the liquidity of that asset.
Without losing its value.
Pardon?
Without losing its value.
Just cash. Let's not get too deep. Highest liquid asset is what? Cash by itself. Cash is cash. So liquidity is extremely high. One of the lowest liquidity asset is real estate. Selling a house could take a year, 6 months, year, 2 years sometime. The bigger the building, the more expensive, the difficult it gets. An element of good luck and bad luck is heavily involved. Now, is liquidity good or bad? Without losing its value, like the gentleman said. Is liquidity good or bad? Should an asset be able to be converted to cash as quickly as possible or as slowly as possible?
Depends on the investor's preferences.
Why is that? Don't you want to convert all your assets into money as soon as possible if the situation arises?
Assets that are not liquid offer more return. If you don't need your money right now, you can invest in a non-liquid
I'm not
asset.
talking about all that deep stuff. If you have to convert your money, if you have to sell your house very quickly and get the hell out wherever you live, don't you think you want your house to be as very liquid?
Of course.
If you're sitting in Damascus right now and everybody's bombing you and your house is still standing still, right, I want to sell this and get the hell out to Germany as soon as possible. So, if you want to convert your asset into, if you want to convert your degree into cash very quickly, you want this degree to be very liquid. If you're still unemployed after 1 year getting a degree, living with mom and dad, and getting harassed by dad and mom all the time, that means the degree wasn't very liquid. Not selling the degree in the market, but converting the degree into a job, right? Asset holders or investors prefer assets that can become liquid relatively quickly. Now, we buy a house because we want to live in a house. We have to buy a house. Liquid or no liquid, we have to buy a house. We hold cash because sometimes we hold cash. And I know lots of people, and not just one, I know quite a few people with lots of money. More money than I have or you have, but they hold everything in a bank account. They own a house where their family lives, and the $1 million pounds they have is all in a bank account. Because checking account can be cashed very quickly. Putting in a bond, putting in a stock, putting anything needs to sell and buy, and you may lose value. And they don't want to. So liquidity is good. Higher the liquid, better the bond. Lower the liquid, lower the bond. Now think of a company with AAA rating. And think of a company. Company A has AAA rating, and company B has B rating. Whose bond is more liquid?
AAA.
Yeah, because the default risk is low. People are willing to buy that. B is not that liquid. Selling is difficult unless they pay a much higher coupon rate. The lower the liquid, higher the rate they have to offer. Lower the liquid, higher the rate. Now, liquidity also depends upon ratings. Ratings has such high influence. It decides the default risk. The low default risk is much easier to sell than high default risk. It's a house. A big house in a nice area, in a nice city is much easier to sell than a big house in a crappy area. Middle of nowhere. $10 minutes.